How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do a contract called Restoring Communication. It's not too much of a bad one. There's a communication tower that's on North Peak, and I need one cargo container and one service spare part, so you only need 3 slots worth of cargo. Yeah, going to fly up to there, grab cargo container and the service spare part. They're pretty close, and at this point I could follow this road round. I was just kind of curious to go this way, just for the fact that the views would be better. I've been this road and it's a little bit kind of slow and boring and whatnot, but I was kind of thinking if I could fly up that hill, it may not actually take that much longer. I kind of figured it probably would. I had kind of a... I was torn between the two. I'd started drawing the lines going the other way, and then I just kept thinking, if I go the other way, I regret I didn't go this way. It's more of a... yeah, like a nicer view, a better route, a route I'd rather take. I do think in the end it would have made this mission go a bit longer, but I don't think there'd be like a crazy amount in it. Yeah, for this one, taking the Paystar, the 5600, the long one, that's what she said. Yeah, got a crane, got the 3-slot sideboard. In the end though, I was aware kind of like I need 3 slots of cargo. I could just lift the loaf up, put them on top of the cargo or tow in behind me. I think just like, I mean even now I was pretty happy with how the Paystar's doing. I've put it in high gear and it's motoring along through here pretty well really. It's kind of, as I've said, it's a little bit I think like the twin steer in some respects. It's certainly got a long enough chassis where you do kind of hit patches, but because the front's so far ahead of the rear and whatnot, it's like, or the rear's far enough behind that it'll push the front through a rough patch, and then the back now gets there but now the front's out the other side. That was I think the first place going down here where it sort of forced me back into auto, but yeah, so far it was doing pretty well. And the 2-slot trailer, I kind of figured if I bring it, I know that it doesn't weigh a lot. Like in other circumstances I'd pick the other 2-slot trailer just because it weighs more. This one drives me mad for that reason, but I kind of knew with this setup, one nice thing with this trailer, and I kind of wanted to see and obviously prove it to myself, sounds a bit extreme, but like this trailer doesn't really add much weight to the actual, like, you know, whatever setup you're running. I mean at the minute, because I've got like a crane on as well, which I didn't necessarily need, but I certainly wanted as a backup. Just, I mean as well that this trailer's a bit crazy when it wants to be. Yeah, I just kind of figured like when you add this to the setup, it doesn't really hold you back too much more. There's obviously a certain amount of friction, and when you've got cargo in there, that's going to add up. But considering how well this truck's motoring along in high, it's clearly not making that much of a difference. And I reckon if I brought the other 2-slot trailer, I would have been kicked out of high kind of more often than I was then. And here now, I'm actually stuck on a tree stump. I kind of just thought, oh, it's a rock. It does look a little bit sort of grey, and that I wasn't paying too much attention, and then there's a little edit there, only about 5-10 seconds, I suddenly realised, like, oh, is it a tree stump? I can't even remember that tree stump being there, and I'm pretty sure I, like, where my trailer is now, I cut to the left of that, so I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right, but I swear there's 3 or 4 times on this phase that I've hit tree stumps that I'm pretty certain I've previously been that same way, and I never noticed them, never hit them. Kind of feel like if that's been there the whole time, I'm pretty bloody lucky that I've not got snagged up on it before. But yeah, I'll remember it now, because I kind of figured something wasn't right when I was putting a winch to like stuff in front. It was pulling me around on an angle, but yeah, obviously at least if it was a rock, you'd kind of keep rolling forward. But I knew something was going on when I was pretty locked in place. It might be handy being there as a winch point. To be fair, it's not like absolutely slap bang in the middle of the road, but yeah, I just kind of, if it's been there the entire time, I'm surprised I've not crashed into it sooner. It's even going along here. I've been through here in various trucks. Certainly been down here with the Dolphin and all sorts. The Dolphin did pretty well through here as well, but the fact that this is actually still staying in high gear at the minute is pretty respectable for a longer vehicle. Got a trailer, got a crane, got a goddamn professional, but again, I'm pretty sure he only adds weight when he needs to. He knows the drill. And yeah, it was nice. It was a little lull in the power there where it could have sort of gone either way, but kept it pinned, fingers crossed, in high gear, and it kind of wound back up. This might now be the first truck that's gone through that last little patch of water. like remaining in high gear, everything for some reason. It seems to be like I went over to the right. I have gone through that water before where, you know, I've drove other trucks through the middle and the left. They don't seem as good, so sort of the benefit of, not really hindsight, but I've driven through there in enough other trucks to kind of be able to pick what I think are the best routes now, so this gets a little advantage in that sense, but nonetheless, the fact that it actually let me stay pinned in high gear through there is, yeah, quite nice, kind of a pretty good sign of like a decent truck, given that I've been through there in some pretty decent ones as well, and yeah, it's just that last bit of water particularly seems a little bit restrictive. I think there might be like roots or a tree, sort of dead tree under there as well that catches quite a bit, whereas yeah, this thing kind of got away with it pretty well. And at least that's that bit out of the way. And overall, yeah, pretty quick run up the map really. I did again a little bit of editing like when I was stuck on that tree, but that was just me sort of taking an extra 10 seconds to figure that one out. Yeah, this yard at the top for cargo container. There is actually, as you can see there, like a 2-slot trailer like I've brought, so I didn't even, I've seen it before, I didn't even think about it or remember it or anything. Strictly speaking, even if I did, I probably would have brought my own 2-slot trailer anyway, just because, I don't know, I kind of like to leave the trailers that the game provides on the map for whatever reason. It's not urgent kind of thing, but I just tend to. Got a bit of a drift going there with the trailer. It was close. It must have been about 1 degree from auto unpacking. But I'm glad I risked it and we made it. Yeah, I'd say as well on this phase there seems to be quite a few missions really where you end up the 3-slot worth of cargo seems to be quite a common theme. I've taken the Kenworth 963 out a few times, and I wouldn't have picked that for this mission anyway, because I knew like the route I was taking was pretty long, and yeah, I certainly wanted like something that's going to be quick enough, sitting like, well, definitely high range gearboxes, like, yeah, going a bit quicker. I mean, I could have got like the Dolphin. I was looking at like the Voron AE, that was a couple of possibilities, and just as I was scrolling through I came across this. I already had it done up. I think it was one I was sort of forced to recover from phase 9. And yeah, I kind of thought, I know this thing's not great on fuel, but I know it's quite punchy in the high gear and all the rest of it. I know I've kind of got a bit of a distance to travel, and it was one of them where I was kind of interested to see if this truck isn't up to scratch, then it's basically going to fail and it's going to run out of fuel before it gets the job done. If it's doing pretty decent these days, then even though it is an absolute fuel burner, the fact that it's quite consistently sort of staying in high gear is nice. At least you're getting some kind of pace and distance for your fuel. And yeah, so that was kind of the test really. Obviously got a Lo4f that's got extra fuel. I also knew just the route I was going to be driving straight past this fuel station, so I kind of already factored that in. But I have also picked like a longer, more awkward route through the mountains really, but again, I would certainly say more of an interesting route. The other route is just, it's not horrible or anything, it's just, you know, medium slowish mud. I think I'll be going uphill for some of it that way. It'd just be a bit of a slow pace. I'd be in auto probably, crawling along in first, and that's about it. I was looking there for potential thumbnails, but then I kind of realised like, oh yeah, if I'm going up that mountain route again, it's very, very unlikely that bridge is going to make the thumbnail. So now I've just gone over those crossroads. I could have gone left, and then essentially up to the top right of the map, past where you get steel beams from, like the warehouse in the corner, and then yeah, follow it down the right hand side of the map to the gateway. And my thinking was, like, obviously driving now, I'm still on better roads, I'd be able to get to like this big steep hill pretty quickly, going the other route. Like, it's not like I'd already be at the warehouse in the corner or anything. I suppose it was kind of the hill where it was going to make or break it. In theory, I thought if I could have a run up and stay in high gear, it was probably wishful thinking. up the hill, then obviously that would make, you know, the hill's only going to take 30 seconds. It kind of dawned on me now, I mean, I'm trying to get a bit of a run up. It's a shame in a way with like the steepness of this hill that they've put this swampy section, and you can see they've made it so there's not really any decent path through there. Like, even if you skirt right round the edge, it's probably doable. I'll have to give that a go. Yeah, that's what she said. But yeah, it's sort of a bit of a shame because they kind of have purposely put that there to where you barely get any time to like wind your speed up. But I will say I am in high gear now, so I suppose I did manage it. I had to go round there, probably lost a bit of my speed in the mud. You can kind of see it all blinking where the old Lo4f was rescuing the twin steer the other day, so it sort of reset the terrain, but sort of remembers as well. Yeah, pretty soon I had to drop into auto and then low gear. Yeah, low range. I put the diffs on as well. So not what I was hoping for, flying up here in high gear. But again, I will say to its credit, I'm going to edit like a chunk of this out because it's essentially just driving up the hill. So the biggest cost to me now while it's doing this is the fuel. I can't quite see off because it shrinks the screen, but it's probably around 25 litres a minute, and yeah, obviously that's just burning its time really. That's all that's just nailing the fuel at that point. It levelled out a bit. I got into auto, but it wasn't really. I thought I'd just go back to low range with the diffs. I was sort of checking. They seem to be pretty similar on the fuel. I think it was about, you know, 22 to 25 litres a minute in low. In auto was probably 22 to say 27, but those little slight extra litres a minute is probably translating to like an extra mile an hour, so it probably pans out about the same. Eventually though, quite a forgiving truck for letting you in high gear, considering once you're kind of wound up in the revs in second, it's pretty generous overall. Like, I mean, the fact that I was still climbing up, like, not the full steepness of the hill, but definitely not level. And even there, through the mud, that's what I quite like about it as well. It's it doesn't instantly throw in the towel in the mud, and I think that just the length of the chassis and that sort of seems to help in this game, because like I said, the twin steer has kind of always got away with that probably a bit more than it should, but I think that's a good thing. I couldn't really tell at this point what I was stuck on. I think it's about now you can sort of see a bit under the truck, like when I was moving, but the thing under me wasn't. I kind of figured, well, it's not my axle or anything. Yeah, a big fat rock there I'm stuck on. Certainly didn't like that one. Yeah, this may well end up being the thumbnail. I do like this route though. This bridge is just a pretty cool route to drive. I quite like that they've added this to the game. I mean, obviously it's pretty nice for a thumbnail, but yeah, just in general, even if I wasn't making a video, it's pretty nice to look at. Obviously I had a mix between, I want to kind of soak up the view a little bit, but I've also, this thing does burn fuel, so I've got to kind of keep the pace going if I can help it. There's a few times as well going along here, it felt like the steering was a bit slow to kick in, but I don't think it was like saying the steering's slow. I think it was just where I was bumping on rocks, it's not quite touching the ground as well as you'd want it to. I was essentially understeering, like, which, yeah, kind of pretty high stakes understeering by the time you're at the top of this mountain. I think there's a good example coming up in a second, and it actually shows you, because like this trailer kind of does weigh about as much as hopes and dreams. You'll see now I start understeering and I turn, but thankfully I decide to hit the handbrake, and just it gets pretty close. The truck's very close to tipping. Almost like the trailer actually sort of stayed straight, and I mean, again, it's a good job the Lo4f dressed to the right, otherwise that could have gone seriously wrong. He's learning. He's copying me ever since my knee. Yeah, long story short, I mean, I had a little look around. There was one or two winch points, but nothing really too advantageous. So yeah, kind of. I mean, again, because this thing's burning fuel, I was like, well, I've got to sort of pick a lane and get on with it. I don't really want to sit here for 20 minutes, kind of in and ahhing. So yeah, stuck it in reverse, went pretty well. The trailer kind of, again, at least the trailer doesn't weigh a lot, so it got out of the way enough. Even though it is a tippy beast, I think because I've got the crane on the sideboard, so it pushes that back, the hitch of the trailer is kind of half under the sideboard, so then at least when you're reversing, the sideboard sort of hits the trailer quite quickly before it has a chance to fully just sort of jackknife or whatever by itself. Like, I think that's possibly helping a little bit, but yeah, thankfully got out of that one. It's definitely pretty sketchy. It does remind me, I've said before, that guy I used to work for in the Isle of Man that was just a seriously rare human. And I say that loosely. Yeah, there's like, went over in the Isle of Man, they sometimes, like when it's snowing, they close all the mountain roads, and but yeah, some rare beast like this doesn't listen to mountain road closed signs. So we went through it, and it was one of them where I almost keep you awake at night. I didn't even appreciate at the time how close we were to dying, but we're about to fly off a cliff like that. We were going down a hill, and there was like a left turn at the bottom, but if you don't turn, you're going off like a cliff and down a mountain. Yeah, and he was braking, we were just skidding in the snow, he couldn't steer or anything, and at the last second it was only really because he hit like a thicker bit of snow where I suppose the tyres kind of bit in just by how deep the snow was, and we actually made the corner. But yeah, we were a couple of feet from, I think there's like 4 of us in this van as well, no seatbelts on because that's the rules. In a van for some reason in the UK, no one ever wears a seatbelt. You could probably get away with that in court. If you try and make excuses, they'll fine you for not wearing a seatbelt. If you just said, look, that's the rules, they'd probably agree. But yeah, we, as it's quite apt as I'm driving along a mountain right now, that's what he nearly made us do. Would not have a goddamn horse or the vehicle now if he did. Again, like same guy here that hit the wheelie bin, that went flying over a bungalow at God knows how fast. Well, we were going about 60, 70 miles an hour, so I assume that's about how fast. But you see, even when he hit the wheelie bin, he's doing it to show off, but he smashed all his front headlight and everything. Like, he just, yeah, he was a rare one. It's even like, obviously normally you working for someone, it's pretty normal, but one morning with him, you get up and it's like, did he go home last night and, you know, watch a film like normal people? No. He chased someone around with an axe and now he's in a mental hospital. And I now don't have work for the next 3 days. Like, that was the kind of rare beast he was. So, yeah. I only worked for him for about 5 weeks, I'm telling you. Felt like 5 years with that guy. There's a little bit of like a snaky section here towards the end. I drove this route the other day because I think it's a communication tower essentially pretty near me. I forgot I'd already saved the footage pretty recently, so I stopped again to save the footage. Then I set off for probably not even a truck length. And then I thought, actually, while I am here, I'll switch the fuel from the Lo4f to the Paystar. The Lo4f, he kept having fuel for himself. What a gentleman. He is good like that. So yeah, I kind of essentially just refueled the Paystar. I was going to leave it just to see how far I get by the time this thing starts stalling, but then I figured I could be on, like, you know, just have a bit of momentum going, be in high gear and all the rest of it, and I might end up costing myself where I have to sort of pull over and transfer the fuel. Yeah, so I just kind of figured before I actually set off, at least where I was, I could get back into high gear pretty easily. And what I should have done at this point, you can kind of cut through that building you could see to the right. I probably should have cut through there just to cut an S-bend out of that, really. That's where I flew off the mountain with like the Lo4f and the Kenworth. But yeah, there's like I've not actually been down here, I don't think, because when I kind of explored the map, there's a road kind of just at the bottom of this cliff. I think there was like a watchtower somewhere along there. So yeah, I've not actually ever been down here before. Kind of lucky, like, the trailer catching the tree didn't really try and make my Paystar tip, it just sort of flicked the trailer around, which again is probably one of those times where the fact that it weighs sod all is kind of handy, really. And I'd have said at this point, I probably would be at the gateway about now if I went kind of the other route up to the top right-hand corner past that warehouse. And fuel-wise, I'd imagine it'd be better, because again, going up that hill, really steep hill, in low gear, using 25 litres a minute, let's just say it took 2 minutes to get up there. Although, in the end, I worked out, I think it probably... Obviously, there'd be some fuel cost even if it wasn't a hill, but I used about 80 litres getting up that hill, so certainly pretty costly, like, compared to the distance covered. Finally kicked me out of high gear there, but it's not too bad. I can soon mash the L1 button and get it back into high gear. Probably. See how, like, the saving cogs, I'm just going over a bridge that I put steering input in, and that second that it decides to save and it sort of blinks, it doesn't register my steering input, and it always, just by coincidence I think on this phase, it always seems to get me where it's a pretty crucial moment where you could really do with, like, the game knowing what steering you put in, because you kind of steer as, you know, not muscle memory, but as you're watching, you're just doing it on the fly. You don't really account for, like, the game just suddenly sneaking in and blocking one of the you know, control, like, options you just entered, and yeah, luckily there it didn't really bite me, but that's the kind of thing where it wouldn't input my steering and then I'd go flying off the bridge, whereas I did actually steer. But yeah, now, like I say, probably an extra couple of minutes versus going the other way, but I certainly think a much more scenic route. And yeah, I mean, I could have cut the trailer loose, put the cargo, like, where the loaf is, put the loaf on top. And to be fair, this Paystar's actually pretty decent tonight. It's not really been that tippy at all, considering I've got a crane on and all the rest of it. And the trailer, you know, is, in theory, trying to encourage me to tip. Although it did, by some miracle, stop me from tipping earlier. But yeah, I think with the loaf on top of the side, on top of the cargo and all the rest of it, it'd be quite tall and a bit tippy. I probably wouldn't have been able to push my luck quite as much. And long story short, now, as I say, I like to set off and kind of plan my route, but I've got enough fuel between the truck and the loaf to make it. So I was kind of conflicted now between, do I not refuel anything, because I think I can make it to where I'm going, which, as you see, is like, when you get through the gateway, the way I've got the map rotated with the gateway at the bottom, it's like in the bottom left of the map. Yeah, I was kind of conflicted between, I was quite happy to go and sort of chance it and take the fuel I've got. I've still had 10 more fuel in the loaf as well. But then just of, like, good practice I have stashed a maintenance trailer at the gateway there. And yeah, this is, like, exactly where it pays off. This is kind of why I did it. So I was sort of like, do I not get any fuel and kind of prove my point that the goddamn horse, he knows what he's doing, and we would have made it there. And then yeah, I was just like, sod it, I can work out the fuel. I was basically, this truck holds 280 litres. I was on 177 litres. So I basically added 103 litres from the maintenance trailer. And then again, just not really for this specific mission, because I definitely know I'd make it on the fuel now, unless something goes horrifically wrong. I decided to, like, refill the loaf and the roof rack as well, just because, again, not really this mission, but there's definite potential that in the future I'm going to go and get this loaf out of this truck that I'm probably just going to sit next to this tower once the mission's done. So yeah, I may use the loaf in the future. And for that sake, it's just, I'm going past the maintenance trailer, I may as well just refuel it. But yeah, I just in the end decided I can kind of do both ways. I'll refuel everything, but I'll take note of what the fuel was on, so I can kind of see at the end, you know, would I have made it on the fuel I had, etc., or not. At this point, yeah, I could have followed the road, but it just looked on the map like this seemed, it's going to be quicker to cut through here. It didn't look too rough. There is a little bit of a narrow gap here through the rocks, but we will squeeze it in. That's what she said, of course. And yeah, it just saves that corner. I think that just looks like, it just looks like a bit of a rough corner, and certainly now, from a standpoint of wanting to see for myself if I would have made it if I didn't refuel anything or whatever. yeah, I kind of want to get my foot down, which I suppose is kind of the general theme anyway. It's not really ever like I'm going too leisurely to begin with. But nonetheless, I want to be pretty efficient about the route I'm taking now. And like I say, I put an extra 103 litres in this, so if I get to the end of the mission with, let's say, more than 113 litres, because then that means it still would have had 10 litres in it, which probably less than that, it starts doing that stupid stalling thing anyway. But at that point, I could sit it on like idle and winch to stuff in front of me, so even with 10 litres left when it'd normally be doing like, yeah, the jerky thing, as long as you don't rev the engine, I assume this thing's going to idle at about 4.5 a minute maybe, so 10 litres, I'd still have 2 minutes of winching to stuff in front of me. I could probably drag this a good few truck lengths by then. But the winches are pretty weak these days compared to what they were, I think. But back on MudRunner, on that deluge or flooded, whatever, depends which version of the game you had. Yeah, that's how I one-starred that. I was like, floated a Hummer across the river and then just winched it. Took bloody ages, but winched it all the way to the E-Series truck that's like stashed on the right-hand side of the map. And once I got that, obviously just carried on with the mission as normal. But yeah, I will sit there for an hour, winching the trees in front of me, slowly crawling along, if it needs to happen. But I certainly didn't want to if I could help it. And like I said as well, the Lo4f still had 10 litres, so I also would have the option either transfer the 10 litres to the Paystar or jump the Lo4f out the truck, drive to, say, a tree a bit down the road, put the winch from the Lo4f to the Paystar, and essentially, you know, well, not even necessarily need to sit behind a tree, but I probably would, just to get maximum, like, I'm now not going to move back at all. So yeah, I certainly had other options if the fuel was getting low, but there was I liked this because it was I knew planning it that the Paystar is a pretty juicy truck, so I knew I'd be cutting it quite fine. I knew I'd need the fuel from the Lo4f, etc. And yeah, it was one of them. If I make too many mistakes, I crash too much, I tip, I'm going to burn fuel whilst I'm reloading the cargo and whatnot. And that could be the difference. So it was one of them where I had to keep a pretty good pace, but I also, yeah, kind of had to be pretty careful, otherwise I'll burn time that way. And there's a few close calls, certainly going up that mountain road. Again, though, I kind of added that to the mix. I just wanted to, like, I just got the feeling in the last minute, if I went the other way, I'd regret not going this way. So, picked the more fun route. And yeah, I'm glad I did. Sorry, there's some loud-ass motorbike flying past. I don't know how well the mic picks it up. And yeah, you can see on this road, thankfully, like, those rocks there, not too severe, but I could sort of see them on the map. And I was thinking, like, they could kind of make or break it a bit if they completely eat all your speed. I could have done with turning that corner a little quicker. The steering isn't terrible on this. For the length of the truck, obviously it's not gonna turn like the goddamn horse, but for the length of the truck, it's not terrible. And yeah, it's like when you go in this speed that this truck costs you, because this is now when it's up like 32 litres odd a minute or whatever, which is one of the highest in the game. The Navistar's about the same. That was kind of the original fuel drinking machine. Yeah, this one's probably about equivalent though. But yeah, this is the tower. I mean, there's not anything really significant to this mission. I've got to be honest, looking through all the missions I've got left, I've done all the ones to like unlock watchtowers. Sorry, warehouses and stuff. Yeah, every other mission left now is essentially like an insignificant mission other than just for getting it done. The money's pretty low on this mission, not that I care, but it just is for the amount you have to do for this mission. It ended up spawning like, it's like the back of a van repair add-on body thing, so I'm surprised they didn't make us bring a trailer and sort of convert it that way. But yeah, mission done anyway, pretty good. We made it with the fuel. I would have had enough fuel, so Lo4f goddamn professional. But yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Get yourself a Lo4f because he's a goddamn whopper, and I'll be back soon.